Happy New Year, and welcome back. When looking at liminal space images, know that they are not just a checklist of requirements. The image should shape a certain narrative that accurately exhibits liminality. When we're analyzing a liminal space image, we're looking to see how accurately the image can convey the liminality of the scene. So with industrialization, it can look different for everyone, as it varies widely based on location. So while many of these images feature similarities, they're different while conveying the same message, again, across a wide variety of locations. So this first image takes place in an empty lot filled with snow. The structure of this image draws the eye first to the nondescript building, with no signage or indication as to its contents. I'm especially drawn to the way the image is structured, with the snowy ground being the brightest part of the photo, and the building almost blending into it. There's a really high contrast with the dark, almost empty night sky, which balances the visual weight of the image almost perfectly. The building itself acts as a transition between the two colors in the photo, and almost comes across as transitionatory. If you look in the top left corner, the photographer chose to include this little tree branch, which personally serves as a reminder that this photo is not staged or augmented in any way, and it really adds a natural touch. I think it was a great choice to include the tree branch because it breaks up what would have been an almost completely balanced image. So next we have this image in sharp contrast to the last one, with the colors really being the focal point of the image. Immediately it's evident that this photo was taken in some inclement weather, shown through the foggy atmosphere, slick road, and the cloudy night sky. What draws the looker in is this yellow security booth. It's empty, though the lights are on in the facility. It also prevents the viewer from being able to see behind it for any clues about the warehouse. The windows are also extremely fogged up on it, indicating just how heavy the mist is in this environment. There's also a sharp disparity between the bright lights and the washed sky. Right off the bat, this image is different to the other ones because it actually takes place indoors, which I guess makes it stand out at least this far. The strange tiling on the walls, usually seen in public spaces like subways, are actually reminiscent to me of hotel hallways. They both have that similar structure in their design. The ceiling light is unnaturally bright, and the right half of the image shows a completely darker tone. The image's line of sight portrays many visual points of interest that end up leading back to the darkest point in the photo. It leads the eye all the way down the hallway, where there's another bright yellow opening that's seen. That's all the way in the back of the photo, so again, you're drawn to the darkness. There's also many unanswered questions from the photo, like what's on the other side of the fence, or why there's even a fence indoors in the first place, or why there's a fence in a hallway. The palette of this photo is washed, and the contrast in this one is actually opposite to the first image. It's framed well, with no discerning features besides the standard office setup. You can also see new paint on the right side of the wall, where it had to be patched up, and there's some sort of empty canvas or tile resting underneath the first aid station. The lights in the ceiling draw the eye all the way down to another first aid kit, and the doors in the hallway are open, but their rooms are pitch black. There's a lot of different values of gray and tan in this image, but the shadows are really what bring the mood to life, making the hallways indicative somehow, like there's something around the corner, but we're unclear what. The cooler tones of this image feel sterile. While the components of the composition are familiar, it's focused more on displaying the insulated piping, the steel plates, the copper pipe, and all the other miscellaneous pipes at the top. The image is brightest in the front, which indicates that the photographer was standing at some sort of opening, maybe similar to the one at the back of the image. The large pipe on the right is visually balanced by the much brighter left, and the colored pipes as well, seen between the steel plates, draws the eye down to the darker part of the photo. Because there's no embedded lighting, it's a reasonable guess that this is some sort of maintenance area, like a roof or a basement. There is a very interesting variety in the values of the gray and white in the image, which makes the copper pipe at the top stand out all the more. The line in the middle leading to the back exit, or entrance, makes the atmosphere of this image inviting, which seems like a juxtaposition within itself. I highly recommend you pause and look at this one longer, as the more you look at it, the more aspects you'll notice. The first thought I had when looking at this photo was that it looks augmented and two-dimensional almost. There's so much detail that it likely isn't a fake liminal space, especially due to the extremely bright light on the ceiling. I mean, I can almost hear the buzzing from it. The colors in the image are muted as well. Even the green and orange lights seem dull. Every aspect of this photo is dirty, from the walls to the floor to the ceiling, all except for the gray doors in the back. The ceiling light almost appears to be pointing to the door, and the faded blue lining in the hallways draws the eye to it initially. The writing is blurred, and the discolored spot on the wall facing the viewer indicates that there was a sign here that's now taken down. The number of buttons in the elevator and the exposed pipes in the ceiling indicate that the image was taken in some kind of basement or front of a freight elevator, which would explain why it's so filthy. Overall, very unsettling. So this image is grainy in a way that transforms it from a typical suburban scene to a liminal space. It's actually a fantastic example of the juxtaposition between nature and industrial installations, the brightest point of the image being the well-kept grass that actually has recent landscaping lines on it. It's contrasted nicely by the faded gray path next to it. The grass on the other side of the path actually appears to be less well-kept, meaning that the facility behind it only really maintains this side. The darkest point in the photo is the telephone lines, but also the tree, which really enforces the juxtaposition once again. There's little to no definition in any aspect of this photo, particularly the trees in the background, because of the grainy quality. And the bright cloudy background is practically the only way the viewer can discern any detail. The rose-colored sky in this photo conveys a different tone than the others so far. The lens flare is particularly beautiful, and the setting sun feels like an active participant in the photo. The main subject of this image appears to be some sort of hangar or warehouse based on its shape. It also appears almost two-dimensional due to the perspective. The sun and the light sky balance the visual weight of the bulky building, and it shows that the photographer really knew what they were doing. The ground almost appears to blend in with the building, and the support beam draws the eye to the hardware seen on it, which is common looking enough that the viewer will be able to recognize what it is to some extent, but it doesn't have any defining features to be able to tell what it is or what function it actually serves. The poles on the top of the building draw the eye up and around, back to the telephone poles. These lines on the telephone poles actually break up what would have otherwise been gray empty space, and there's something indiscernible on the ground. The middle of the image shows a stop sign all the way in the back, barely legible until you zoom in. Liminal or not, it's a beautiful photo. This image is shrouded in this ominous darkness. The photographer's perspective, as well as the framing of the photo, indicates a huge scale that can't even be captured in a photo. There's also a visible reflection of the additional buildings, which makes the image feel endless and liminal. The light sky balances out the heaviness of the buildings, and they become more illuminated as they're farther from the viewer. The most intricate detail in this photo is that the lights are actually on in the buildings, the only indicator of human presence in what is an extremely industrial landscape. The image is a great example of how a limited range of colors can still convey a full story. It's eerie. The most striking part of this photo is the mystery behind it. It's unclear where the photographer was standing, as there isn't much wake in the water, so they're probably not on a boat. There's just so much to look at in this one, from the slimy green hue of the water, to the Dock 16 in the background, to the odd gray towers. The most defined detail is the red ladder and the lookout spot. One last thing to mention is the water surrounding the dock and how it gets darker and seems to have no end approaching the viewer. It's bizarre and practically supernatural, especially because of the ghostly green water. So many of the photos we've observed have been color corrected by the photographer, and this one is clearly no exception. The colors and details are all extremely sharp to the point where it almost looks like a painting, particularly the sky. The reflection on the water is still. It conveys a quiet environment, and the building looks very old-fashioned. The moss growing on the building above the spokes conveys that juxtaposition again between nature and industrialization. The entire scene, which is clearly well maintained, still somehow manages to look untouched, like something the photographer stumbled upon. The magnitude of the image and the way the perspective draws the eye down makes it seem foreboding. There are many details and colors that all work in harmony, and my mind defaults to the canal section of Half-Life 2. Comparing this image to that scene in the game is fascinating to me, as they both have similar themes and colors. So what do I mean when I call these images industrial? Oxford Dictionary believes the word industrial means relating to or characterized by industry, or very great in extent or amount. The way I collected these images, I tried relating them to industrial fine art pieces. They normally depict robust hardware, gloomy skies, and monolithic mechanisms. They capture the unbecomingness of the world, the bleakness seen through the lens of humanity being a part of a world they didn't create. These scenes are often left devoid of nature, while establishing it takes place in our world, as all the structures we can observe represent or heavily resemble ones of our world. These images capture human design and feel lifeless and empty, even so beyond the measures of them falling into what's considered a liminal space. As always, thank you for watching, and take care.